Today I'd like to talk to you guys about meeting structure. In speaking with other facilitators and reflecting on my own personal experience, I found that those groups that have some structure tend to do better than those that don't have structure to the meeting. The ones that don't have any real structure or are lax, have no agenda, that type of thing, those groups tend to fragment, or the members tend to find that their time is not well spent. And those that do have a formal agenda with timed segments and a facilitator that will enforce and stick to that, those groups tend to engage better, and the members come away feeling like they got more from it. So even though there's very little consistency from what I found from one facilitator to another, there is an overarching tendency to have a general content that works well for any group. And so I'm just going to talk to you about that for a minute. First of all, you do have a written agenda. And second of all, you time the segments. I like to use a software application. Some people use something like an egg timer, but you just plan these segments out where everybody will finish on time. And so basically there's about three to six parts that people will go through. I'm going to talk to you about 6 of those. The opening part of the meeting is a great time to sort of set the stage. If you've got an overarching mantra or a spiritual component to your meetings, then in your group, then that's a good time to revisit that and remind everybody why you're meeting, and sort of set the tone for what the rest of the meeting is going to be about. And then the second part, the next part you would move into, which works great, is to ask each member to report on their individual commitments. And so they ended a meeting last time, giving a commitment for how they would take action on what they learned that day. And so then just go around the room or around the group, one at a time, giving them each person a minute or so to just articulate how did things unfold, or how did things go with their commitment that they made the last meeting. Then the third part of the meeting that's real important, probably the most important part, a lot of people refer to this as the hot seats. I like to call it a focused guidance. But essentially you take the bulk of the meeting and you break it up according to how many people are going to receive focus during that meeting. Some people will pick one person or 2 people to receive focus, in the next meeting they move. It's more common for each person to get equal time in the meeting. In the groups that I run, we give each person 18 to 20 minutes. I've seen these things run as high as a full hour for one member. Generally, I like to give a hot seat period for each individual in each meeting. And the breakdown on that is that first they should ask the question, have it actually written down before they start. And this is a sentence or 2. What is the question? Follow that with a backstory. Why are they asking the question? Then the facilitator then opens the floor up for clarifying questions. The other members can ask, well, what did you mean by this? Get through that, and then the majority of time is spent with the other members of the group reflecting on their personal experience relative to the issue at hand. And then that's concluded the last minute or so at the very end with sort of a wrap-up. That is a great time for the facilitator, who tends to be a subject expert, to share any thoughts they have to sort of wrap up and bring a conclusion to that. Then the fourth part of the meeting is where you go back around the room, generally in the same order you went through with your reflection time, and each individual member articulates a commitment for what they can do as a takeaway for what they learned that day. And I think that's a really important component. It carries over to the next meeting. It's something that that the participants can share in between meetings. And then as the meeting begins to wind down and wrap up, this is a good opportunity to sort of set a proper tone, and that is to give reflection on what that member might have gotten from the meeting, some sort of positive takeaway, how they feel like they benefited. And then the facilitator should move on to do any kind of final announcements about the schedule, that kind of thing, and wrap up. So in recap on how a good meeting structure might work, everybody's different. There's no real consistency to it, whatever works for you. We do know that lax or no agenda does lead to group fragmentation and people feel they have their time wasted. That's certainly not a way to do it. But a really good, well-run meeting has a set agenda. Segments are timed. The facilitator sticks to the time with dedication. There's a first period where the stage is set, the tone is set. Then members report on their outcomes from the last commitments they gave. They go into their focus time where they ask their question and receive reflection. Then you go back around the room. You give commitments about what, as individuals, you're going to do with the information that you gathered from the group, and then you wrap up by giving each person communicating what they learned or took away from their experience. So I hope that you guys got a lot from this. We'll catch you later.